Heads up.
Good morning, everybody. Having listened to our members and listened to the American people, we have a budget agreement. This agreement will protect our economy and reduces the deficit. It secures more long-term entitlement reforms. It strengthens our national security. It brings more certainty to next year's appropriations process. It protects more Americans from Obamacare and rejects all of the tax increases as proposed by the administration. The agreement isn't perfect by any means, but the alternative was a clean debt ceiling increase without any additional support for our troops and without any entitlement reforms. So this is a good deal for our troops and for the American people.
Before I talk about this bipartisan budget agreement, I want to thank the Speaker. I want to thank the Speaker for his career. I want to highlight a few parts. You know, we put a little video together inside conference, and they put this poster up of the Gang of Seven. We're in the minority, and he's the last man standing, but what was the Gang of Seven? The Gang of Seven was the very beginning to change Washington and clean it up. I look around this room. I wasn't around at the time either. But there was a House bank and a House bank scandal. Your predecessors probably wrote about it, but they would have never known about it if it wasn't for John Boehner, and it never would have been shut down. He fought and was able to be a part, and a big part, of winning the first majority for Republicans in 1994. And he served in leadership to do it. Everybody has stumbles, but it's the character of an individual is how you handle it. John left leadership, never complained, but continued to fight for the American people. Came back as a committee chairman, focused on education. You've watched it every day of his life. Just last week, we passed a bill dealing with the scholarships for low income. He has never forgotten why he ran, and he's never stopped fighting for them. Very few people in their career could ever say they fought to win 2 majorities, and John has. Now, as we go to depart, John has not given up. Yeah, we've come to a bipartisan budget agreement. It probably wouldn't be the final agreement if we could write it by ourselves. But somebody different is in the White House. We have strived in this majority within our first 4 months to write a budget that would put us on a new path. And lots of times people don't write about what we've been able to achieve. In that very first budget, a lot of people criticized us, said we went too far. If you take those budget numbers for our 2011 of where we'd be today, with this budget agreement, we're below them. We've been able to achieve even with Barack Obama and president. So we dealt with what's happening around the world with a foreign policy that's lacking, with our military needs. We've got more than 100 members signing a letter. We've been able to fund the military in a much that needs to when we look at where the world holds. But we've been able to do it in a fiscal manner to keep us under the limits we had in our original budget. That's an accomplishment. I think history will be kind to this man because he kept the word he'd always said. Continue to do what's right, and that's what he's done. So I want to thank the Speaker for his service. You can applaud him.
Well, it is a big day. So next week is the anniversary. It's the 5-year anniversary of when the Republicans took the majority and when John Boehner became Speaker of the House. And we have a lot to celebrate because of his leadership in the House. And you think about the path that we were on before he was Speaker and the important reforms and legislation that he has led on for people all across this country. It's quite an impressive record. He's always been committed to fiscal responsibility, and since he's been Speaker, we have reduced spending, overall spending, by over $2 trillion. It's the most significant spending reductions in modern history. We passed the first 10 year-year House-Senate balanced budget plan since 2001. And there's the opportunity split on so many issues. It was under his leadership that earmarks were banned in the House and the Senate. I'm proud of the work that we've accomplished together, and I have been thankful for his leadership, not just for the House of Representatives, but for America and for every person in this country. Later this week, we will be electing a new speaker, and we're going to continue to make the people's priorities our priorities. We are committed, we are determined to expand opportunities, to empower the innovators, and make the American dream an attainable goal for every person in this country.
Just a week ago, President Obama was insisting upon a clean debt ceiling that would have been destructive to our economy and to this country. When you fast forward to today, what the Speaker laid out is a plan that not only denies the President that clean debt ceiling increase, but actually implements some important reforms for our country and some of the things that our conference has been fighting for a long time. If you start with the Social Security reforms, Congress hasn't passed a reform to the Social Security program since Ronald Reagan was president. There's a reason it's taken over 30 years to get real reforms to a program that's got real solvency problems. And the reforms in this program, especially as it relates to disability, a program that's headed for direct bankruptcy, are very important to make sure that seniors are protected from the kind of cuts that could come from bankruptcy, as well as people with disabilities that have been clamoring for reforms to prevent people from abusing that program, from the double dipping and the fraud involved in that program. So the fact that it's taken over 30 years to get those kind of reforms to Social Security are very significant to strengthening the program for people who use it and rely upon it. The other thing is there has been a big fight within our conference between fiscal hawks and defense hawks to get budget numbers that work, but in a fiscally responsible way. And some people said you couldn't accomplish both. In this budget agreement, we actually solved that in a way where both fiscal conservatives and defense hawks can come together and get an agreement that provides for a strong national defense that meets the challenges that our country is facing all around the world. Threats from ISIS, threats from Russia, threats in the Middle East. Finally getting the kind of defense numbers that we need for a strong military. And setting the stage to be able to get a real appropriations process done both this year and next year as well, the kind of regular order that our members have been asking for a long time. So I want to thank the Speaker for his work. In a big agreement like this, both sides of the negotiating table can find things they like and don't like, but when you look at the significant reforms, especially reforms to save Social Security from an imminent bankruptcy in the disability program, something that hasn't happened for 30 years, that's quite significant.
Well, this might be the last time I get to do this. Yes, sir.
Speaker, with this agreement, you're going to get some of the glory and a lot of the hell.
Really? What else new? Yes, yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm prepared for it. Listen, when you got a bipartisan agreement in a town that isn't known for a lot of bipartisanship, you're going to see bricks flying from those that don't like the fact that there's a bipartisan agreement. But there is. It's a solid agreement, and I told my colleagues there isn't any reason why any member should vote against this.
Speaker Boehner, this was a 4th and 15 touchdown to end the game.
No. In your view, it was a 4th and 15th. You know, ye of little faith over the last couple of weeks, I found rather interesting amongst all of the skeptics sitting in the room. I frankly never had any doubt that we'd get to an agreement. Sometimes the clock works against you. Sometimes the clock works in your favor.
How big of a gift was this to Paul Ryan?
Listen, I made it clear a month ago when I announced that I was leaving that I wanted to do my best to clean the barn. I didn't want him to walk into a dirty barn full of you-know-what. So I've done my best to try to clean it up.
Mr. Speaker, we just spoke to Paul Ryan about this. He said the process stinks. That was his words.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
But can you, a lot of your members, too, are very upset at the way this was cut behind closed doors. It was dropped on their laps last night. You're going to vote on it tomorrow. Can you defend this process?
No, I'm in full agreement. It stinks. This is not the way to run a railroad. But when you've got a situation that we're dealing with today, it's like it wasn't any choice. it certainly is not the process I would want. Remember what the alternative was. The alternative was a clean debt ceiling or default on our debt. It also means that we got to December 11th, we could facing another government shutdown. And so when you look at the alternative, it starts to look a whole lot better. But I would hope that the process in the future would have a little more length to it, involve more members. Yes, ma'am.
Question?
Yes.
The Freedom Caucus has caused you a lot of problems, obviously. Here in your final act, you're rolling them. Can you describe your thought process there?
I wouldn't quite describe it that way. We have a bipartisan agreement that makes sure that the debt ceiling is increased, and we make good on our debt and our debt service, and it paves the way to fund the government this year and next. And the fact is that this will make it easier for the entire Congress for the balance of this year, and it'll make next year a whole lot smoother for the Congress as well.
Could you describe how you, this might be the last time you speak to this setting. Could you describe how you feel kind of a couple days left in this?
I don't really feel any differently than I did last week, the week before last, or for that matter, 2 months ago. And I get up every day and go to work and try to do my best. Some days are harder than others. These last 3 or 4 days trying to get this agreement together certainly weren't easy. But when you sign up for the job, you have to take everything that comes at you. But I feel pretty good about where I am. And I like the fact that I see light at the end of the tunnel.
Speaking about that light, you understand you got a gift today, a golf cart?
Yeah, the members gave me a golf cart and a license plate, and the Ohio members gave me a golf bag and a new set of golf clubs. Obviously, it's going to be part of it.
Mr. Speaker, so back to my news question here about Paul Ryan saying the process stinks. You say you agree, though. He's going to very soon have to make some of these tough decisions like you had to make this week. Say this is not something that the perfect process. Does he have it in him, do you think, to be able to cut these deals? And even if he is ultimately against this particular agreement, what does that say as the final, mark on your speakership if he's against it?
No. Listen, Paul knows how to do this. You go back 2 years ago, we had the Ryan Murray budget agreement, which, frankly, if you look at this, is a whole lot different than what he and Senator Murray put together 2 years ago. So he knows how to do this. He knows the players, and he has the respect of the players that make these decisions. So I don't think he'll have any problem at all.
But you don't think that if he ultimately says
It's irrelevant. It's going to pass with a bipartisan majority, and I'll be really happy. All right.
the new speaker is against something that the old
Lest you're making assumptions that you shouldn't make.
So you used the analogy of cleaning out the barn. You've used it a lot, and you said that you know what gets thrown around when you're doing that. One of your colleagues on his way out went a little bit further with that analogy and said he and his colleagues are getting a lot of manure all over them with what you're doing. Makes me wonder if on your way out, and it was folksy, but
May God bless him.
So, Mr. Speaker, other of your colleagues have wondered if this conference, whether it's Ryan or anybody else, is leadable. Are they leadable as you exit their leadership?
Well, we'll know soon enough. Paul, last one.
What was your best day in the majority? What was your best day in the last 5 years?
Best day in the last 5 years, probably last Wednesday, when we reauthorized the Opportunity Scholarships for the kids here in D.C., and it also happened to be that evening, the annual Boehner Feinstein Williams dinner, raising money for another group of kids in a scholarship program. Listen, I was meeting with the mayor of Cleveland a couple of months ago. He was talking about his challenges, and I looked at the mayor. I said, Mr. Mayor, if you could find a way to educate all of your kids, all your other problems go away. And most of you know I get pretty wound up talking about education, but when you only educate half of your kids, it's a disgrace. And that's basically what America does. Educate about half of our kids. More than half get a diploma, but they get a diploma they can't read. So anyway, last Wednesday was a pretty big day. And I enjoyed it. And my friend Lou Holtz showed up at the dinner to surprise me. And I was surprised. Bye. All right.
Oh, these will be the last one.